If you're someone who's trying to make sense of loss, navigate grief, or find the strength to keep moving forward when life is changing in ways you never expected, this episode is for you.
Driven by purpose, fueled by passion, my words got power, my thoughts have action, motivation, stay gracious, that's greatness, be audacious, motivation, be audacious, innovation, be audacious, inspiration, be bold, motivation, be audacious.
Well, let's just say that sometimes some of us have more life experiences than others, and we come across things that, you never expect because, life has ups and downs, but at the same time, you don't expect to have so many things coming at you. And I don't want to be in a wheelchair. I don't want to be confined. I don't want this to be the rest of my life. Life has to give you sometimes a particular twist that they think you need to learn something from. So my husband passed away in 2021, Christmas Eve. And that was a big curveball that I didn't expect.
What if one of the boldest things you could ever do isn't chasing success or taking a big leap, but choosing to keep loving, keep growing, and keep living after the deep pain? This podcast is all about helping you unlock your inner greatness and live your best audacious life. Today's guest is Cyndee Dhalai. She's a writer, author, and thoughtful voice on grief, resilience, and what it means to move forward after life-altering loss and illness. In this conversation, she shares her journey through serious health challenges, loss, and the perspective she's gained through it all. When I think back to our chat, the thing that stood out to me was the way Cyndee reframed healing. She talked less about getting over again and more about learning how to create space around it, carry it differently, and still keep living. So you can do all those three in tandem to find success and from a healing standpoint. Cyndee had lots of great stuff to share. It was delightful talking to her. So without any further ado, let's turn to our conversation. Enjoy. Hey, Cyndee, thank you for joining me here today on the Audacious Living Podcast. I appreciate you taking the time to do this. Thank you.
Thank you, Audley.
Yeah, it's great to be able to connect and, the share insights. I think that's, one of the things that I really appreciate about the opportunity to share insights. Everyone has a story. Everyone has a lesson. Everyone has an insight or a perspective that they can offer. And, if somehow through our conversation, we can help others, on their own individual journey, then that's a big win as far as I'm concerned. And so I want to thank you again.
Yeah, also, because that's how we learn.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Now, on this podcast, we oftentimes talk about, the best audacious life and sort of on that pathway, on the journey that we have. We've got our own sort of sets of challenges and pitfalls and obstacles, but the key is to get past those, get on the other side of that, because that's where, the greatness lies essentially. And so, but in the moment, it's hard. It's not easy and it's painful sometimes, but we have to continue to move forward. Because again, it's incumbent on us because life comes with struggles naturally, and so maybe as a starting point, I can get you to. Excuse me. As a starting point, I can get you to introduce yourself to our audience, talk about the work that you do, and what's got you to the point that you're at now.
Well, like you said, my name is Cyndee Dhalai, and I live in the Caribbean, Trinidad and Tobago. And well, let's just say that sometimes some of us have more life experiences than others. And we come across things that, you never expect because, life has ups and downs. But at the same time, you don't expect to have so many things coming at you. And when, like you mentioned, when you do encounter things, it's hard. And you're going to think to yourself that there's no way I'm going to get out of this. How am I going to get out of this? What did I do to deserve all these things happening to me? And you start second guessing yourself and you start pushing past things that you have no control over. And that's one of the most important things we have to realize. Mm-hmm. We have no control over life. We might be able to manage circumstances and how we feel, but at the same time, we can't control life because life is not just us alone as an individual, just being in charge of everything, because there are other people around us who also have like different perspectives, different motives, different intentions,
Yeah.
and different ways of thinking and being. And while you may think someone will react the way you expect them to, some very often, because sometimes even you surprise yourself by the way you react to things and stuff like that, whatever.
Yeah.
And in my case, it was like I got like a snowball effect with everything that was happening in my life. And then like, you get a short pause and things would seem to be going good. And then something new will turn up and you find yourself wondering, okay, what else? What next?
After you catch your breath, right?
Yes.
Okay. So let's like sort of talk about what that looked like for you and what was happening in your world that snowballed, if you will.
Okay. Well, first, you grew up in a mixed society like I do and like I did. And at that time, we're talking about a long time ago, right? And most people wouldn't even be able to comprehend what life was like at that certain time, but that was what you knew. So, things happen, you go against traditions and you kind of, especially if you have a mouth on you and you like to ask questions like I do, you get yourself into a lot of trouble. And then find yourself ostracized and kind of separated from your family and friends and religion and everybody you knew before. And then you have to start all anew. And sometimes you start from -0 because you're starting and you don't have help. So
Right.
you build from there. And it's a struggle because you have to know how am I going to finance this? How am I going to budget this? Especially when you're newly married and you're young. You're struggling just to try to keep everything in place, and then children comes along, and that's
Right.
another headache you have to see about. Not that children are headache, but it's a responsibility for them,
Sure.
and you
Sure.
have to adjust your life. And at the same time, now I was juggling family and life, and I was studying, and then my husband job was such that he had like he worked shifts. It was like different scheduling, and I felt
Hmm.
but life was good. Everything was at least it was moving forward, things were happening. And then, of course, a few years went by and I got hit with the biggest, well, what should I put it? I wouldn't say it's an obstacle, but like kind of like the biggest uh struggle I had to go through, which was my body got sick, my body got ill. I say my
Hmm.
body, not me, because it's my body that was affected,
Right.
whilst and my body doesn't define who I am.
Okay.
And I got really, really ill. And but they said it had been building up for a while because in one shot you learn you had lupus and chronic kidney disease and asthma and anemia. And to
Right.
top it off, I'm allergic to all medications, which means I can't even take a baby Panadol, right?
Mm.
So, it kind of came up, and then the illness was such that I lost 4 years of my life in a fog because I flatlined a few times, and there's nothing, I don't have much memory of that. My body was here, but I wasn't here.
Okay.
And what
Okay.
I knew basically about my body being ill was that what my husband had told me and what my children had told me, and like the doctors and close friends are reading medical reports. So it's kind of like, I think, and to top it off, I ended up in a wheelchair
Okay.
for over 11 years. So to go from being a teacher and driving and having my independence and managing myself to a certain extent and doing things that I like, and when I felt like it, I was now confined in a wheelchair.
Mm.
And for me, that was very hard because
Sure.
I didn't really, to be honest with you, I didn't really connect to the illnesses in my body because I was not present in that. They were so bad that I would be in and out of
Okay.
knowing what was happening
Okay.
because I'd flatline, and then it's kind of like you go into a phase where you don't, like, I wasn't really present to be like there at the time when my body was getting ill, right?
Okay.
So I didn't really connect to that. And afterwards, like when you try and when you come out of it, and when you kind of start recovering, you realize that, listen, I don't like this. And I want to go back to how I was before. I want to be able to, you know, start back walking and doing things. And I hated being confined, to be honest with you.
Sure.
Because that wasn't me. Ever since I've known myself, I'm always active. I'm on the go. I do things. I'm the one driving, and if I want to do something, I just get up and go and do it. But now it's like I couldn't.
Right. Life's changed in a major way. So there's an acceptance around, what do you do now that these changes are happening in your life? How did you manage those changes?
Well, first, I was very rebellious with myself because I didn't want to accept it. I don't want to be in a wheelchair. I don't want to be confined. I don't want this to be the rest of my life.
Right.
So, despite what everybody was telling me and, my family getting upset with me, I would still try to walk. Now, the doctors had told me that there was no way I could walk again because they thought there was like neurological damage because of the fact that I had flatlined so often, and
Okay.
the extent of the illness was such that most times they didn't expect me to live. Right? And one time they told me I had a 5% chance of survival.
Mm.
Anyway, and then so I started trying to move about. But my husband would get upset and my children would get upset, and they said, like, Mom, you're not supposed to, because if something happened to you, you can't get treatment because you're allergic to anesthetic and all drugs. So if you break a bone or if you damage something, they can't do anything for you. Right?
Okay.
Because the only way they can treat me is if I'm nearly dead. And then one day they got upset with me. It was only my children who brought me out of it because they said, you have no idea what it's like when you flatline, and my husband told me, he said, I can't take you go flatlining one more time again.
Right.
He said, I can't go through that again. And then I realized I was being very selfish because I had put them, not intentionally, but they had gone through a lot because of the fact of
Sure.
what
Yeah.
I had gone through,
Yep. It's difficult to watch.
and
Yep.
I was
Yep.
putting pressure on them by wanting to go back to doing things that I used to do before. And then I realized that, listen, I'm not in the same place. I'm not the same person I was before, the illness took over my body. And I sat down and I said, I was being very selfish. And this is not me because I was the one who was always helping everybody and doing everything, putting everybody first. And now I realized that there was a part of me that was kind of fighting, to go back to
Right.
what was. And you can't go back to a stage of your life before. So
Mm-hmm.
I thought, okay, let's make a list. What are the advantages of me? What am I learning in being in a wheelchair? And I realized when I sat down that there were things that over time that I had kind of developed and I had gotten better at. And even though I was a teacher before and I had to retire medically unfit, I did learn to be more patient.
Right.
In that I was more understanding. And I also learned to really listen to people. Not just listen to the words, because sometimes, when you're active and you're going and somebody's talking to you, you're listening to them, but your mind is also jumping ahead to what else am I going to ask them and else am I going to say? Or, okay, do I have something else to do? You're listening to them, but you're not hearing what they say.
Right.
And I
Right.
realized that I was listening more and I was also hearing what was unsaid and seeing the emotion, and I was paying more attention to the person who was speaking. Whether it was a conversation or in person, you were paying more attention to what the people were actually saying,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it gave me better understanding. And also the fact that I got more compassionate to others who, when they felt sick or they were going through something, I understood. So when people call me, like a lot of people would speak to me like throughout all the years about issues they had, problems, whether they were ill, whether they had other relationship problems with children, whatever. And I found that I could respond better to them because I stopped to think before I answered them, not just rattle something that everybody would hear off the top of their heads.
Right.
And that is what kind of struck me. I said, listen, and also, instead of me rushing around from this to that to the other, I had more time to focus on what maybe I wanted to do something and I didn't have time to do it, or I thought about it, but I couldn't do it because, I had so many things going on and, so now I had more time. So I said, okay, fine. What can I do now? My children love to eat. I can cook, yes. And I taught myself to cook basically and bake all kind of stuff and to sew from scratch and to continue it. I always like calligraphy and I had done it
Okay.
before I did art. And so I started doing calligraphy, and I would think and I'd read more. And
Hmm.
it's kind of like I settled more and I began to look at myself more.
Okay. So so it sounds like your children really was a good spark for you to sort of get you on that path of I was gonna say healing. Is that fair to say?
I guess I don't really use the word healing because sometimes you don't really heal from something. What you learn to do is you learn to manage it
Okay.
and you learn to move forward while holding on and creating space around what happened in your life. Because that's what we basically do. I mean, a lot of people may disagree with me, but whenever anything happens in your life, you don't heal from it because you still carry it inside of you, whether it's a scar, whether it's a memory, because we have memories that we hold inside of us. And when something else comes up, because remember, our mind is like a library, and we have all these books of all our experiences stored inside of it. And
Right.
if one thing happens, you kind of find yourself going to the library, automatically you go to the library and said, okay, oh yeah, I remember this disappointment from before. And this also happened to me. See how unfair life is? And you spiral into the whole cycle of, okay, this has happened before and see how it
Right.
turned out. And you find yourself going down instead of thinking, okay, yes, this happened before, but look at how I got over it,
Yeah,
you
that's right.
know?
Yep.
And I learned to move forward. So that's what you do. You create space around it
Yep.
and you grow.
I like that because you're creating evidence or creating proof, right? So something happens to you and you're like, oh man, but you work through it and you get through it, and then something else happens, you go, whoa, well, I got through that yesterday. Why can't I do this? Like that kind of a
Yeah.
thing, and you create that proof in your mind, and I remember once I was going on this really long bike ride, and it was over a course of several hours. And I remember I got to this one hill, and I was exhausted. I'm like, I can't do that hill. Well, because I had been riding for all this time prior, I remember going, yeah, how many hills have you already passed? That's just one more. Like, go. You can't say, tell me you're tired, tell me you're exhausted, but don't tell me you can't do it because you've done so many
Yeah.
already, right? And I think that is the kind of mindset that you're talking about.
Yes, that's what I'm talking about. Because the fact is that, okay, you had a disappointment, and like, okay, let's say you're in a relationship and something bad happens, you had an argument, you know, and you're thinking, oh gosh, I don't know what to do, because we keep arguing all the time, and this is not good, and I don't like this, and they were wrong or whatever. But then stop and ask yourself, say, well, this happened before. We got through this before with different people or whatever, but that was before. This is now, and it happened before we got through it. And this is different now. So let's look at the circumstances around it.
Right.
What made it different? What made it happen? Was the argument because of what was said, or was it because I was tired, or I was anxious, or it was a bad day and we just both reacted? So sometimes you have to step outside yourself and look at circumstances, not the people involved in something.
Got you.
And very often we do that. That's what we do. We look at the circumstances and we don't look at, okay, maybe I had an argument with Audley because I was tired and something irritated me from before, but I
Yep.
portrayed it on him because he happened to be the one there.
Yep.
So
Yep.
it wasn't intentionally your fault and it wasn't intentionally my fault. It's just that I gave in and I allowed myself to go down the spot.
Yeah, and that really speaks to the importance of introspection, right? Being able to look at yourself, right?
Yeah.
And that's not I can totally get it. It's hard in the moment, right? There's no question in the moment because you're
Yeah.
dealing with emotions and everything else. But when you take that opportunity to kind of think back, and oftentimes if we do stop and think back, we can pinpoint what the trigger was and what it was, and yes, and sometimes it's got nothing to do with the other person. They were just they were just in the way, right?
Yeah. And sometimes, like when you do that, sometimes I mean, at the moment, like you most said, when our brain is thinking are we in an actual situation, we just react instead of responding,
Right.
So you react. But afterwards, the moment you stop and you think about it, apologize one time. And because that will clear the air and said, I mean, it's so simple. So that's what I learned like during that part of that snowball. And then, of course, life never gives you a smooth path. You have your valleys and you have your mountains.
Sure.
And, well, I had settled into being into a wheelchair after 11 years. And, my children were grown. they were moving on, studying and stuff like that and thing. And both are allowed. I will admit, I have two really great children, and they're both married and they're doing well. And of course, then life has to give you a sometimes a particular twist that they think you need to learn something from. So my husband passed away in 2021, Christmas Eve.
Mm.
And
Mhm.
that was a big curveball that I didn't
Mm.
expect.
Yeah, my condolences. It's still when we lose loved ones, particularly when we didn't see it coming. And we didn't prepare, we didn't get advance notice. It just happens, and I think sort of your earlier point, what's next, and really what's next is we can't control it. To your point, we have to manage it, and that sounds like that's kind of what you did. How did you manage that loss, considering what you came off, what it came on the heels of, right? You just got over something or got through something.
Yeah, because like for over since 2013, I had not gotten ill. I had not been to a doctor. I was in a wheelchair, yes, but somehow I was managing my body without medication at all, or having any episodes of lupus or anything or whatever. And they couldn't test to find out if any, I mean, how things had progressed with me, because it was a paradox in finding out how bad my organs were, everything was with me. They would kill me by the drugs that they inject me with. So, it's kind of like I was managing, even though, and I was still in a wheelchair, and then in a very short period of time, he got sick and he died.
Mm.
And I had to, like, first you're involved in, you had to fix up everything and you had to see about everything. And I thought that, okay, I was managing well because I accepted it and I was working through it and I had my children and I was learning to live by myself, you know, but I thought, like, you had your ups and downs. Like with grief and loss, you do have ups and downs.
Hmm.
You go through the deep, intense pain, and you feel the loss and the separation and the absence of somebody that you love in your life, and you think it's not really fair and whatever. And then in 2023, I thought that I was doing okay, and then I something major happened in my life, and I just crashed. And I realized that I was not handling everything. And when I thought I was managing and I was moving forward, what I really was doing was that I had not faced myself and I had not agreed with what is missing from my life. Because you see, when we go through a loss, whether it's a job, whether it's somebody you love, a
Hmm.
pet, or even if you have to move from one place to the other, all those are losses. And you do experience a sense of grief and a sense of absence, and because things have changed, it's not the same as it was before. So what I realized that while I knew that I had a loss in my life, and while I knew that it was painful and I was angry at sometimes, and I was saying, what I didn't do is I didn't agree with the loss. And that
Gotcha.
sometimes we will say, yes, I know that these things happen or whatever and stuff like that. What you're doing is you're acknowledging it, but agreeing with something is totally different. It's like when you sign a contract. You read the terms of the contract and stuff like that and think. But before you sign on the contract, you have to agree
Yeah.
to what is written on the contract. And that's what you have to do when you face a loss or a grief or any decision you make in life. You have to agree to the terms or what is laid out. And
Right.
that is what happens in life, like with grief or with the loss of someone, whether it's a relationship breakup or friend or what a friendship breakup or somebody passing away. You have to sit down and say, okay, this is no longer in my life.
Right.
And they're not going to be part of my life anymore. And I am here.
Hmm.
So I have to see that I accept what happened. I acknowledge all that was shared together. I acknowledge that there were good times and bad times. I acknowledge that it was a we in that
Hmm.
when you and the person, whoever they were together, there was a we. But
Yes.
now there's just a me.
Yes.
And you have to agree that it's just me. And that's where the hard part comes in. You see, agreeing with yourself that it is just
Mm,
me.
mm,
And so I have to find a way to create space. And that's a term I use often because and people don't understand why I got it from. I said, listen, it's because you are creating space. It's like you clear out a room. You know, you have all the memories cluttering inside of you and things, and you can't do anything about it. But what
right.
you can do is you can store them away. The same thing like when you pack everything in containers and stuff like
Sure.
that. You store it
Hmm.
inside of you and you keep it because there's no way, unless you have a lobotomy, you can't get rid of your memories.
Right. Right.
So what you can do is you can hold it, the good things and the bad things inside of you. And then you said, okay, I have this. This is what it is. This is what
Hmm.
it was. But this is where I am now. And so how do I, as a me, find a way to make something out of what is for the rest of my life now? And
Right.
that's where you create space. You step out of the position and circumstances you were in before
Hmm.
because you can't undo it.
That's right.
So
And I think that's the number one thing
yeah,
we need to recognize. Although it's certainly obvious, right? But
yeah,
it's conscious that we can't undo what's already been done. And I very much appreciate and love how you frame things like those memories are what we hold on to, whether they're good or they're bad. But I think. And how I kind of frame loss and grief, and whether it be you lose someone to death, or maybe end of a relationship, or whatever
mhm,
type of loss there is, it's appreciation for what you had, because that
yeah,
experience, that individual, they taught you something. They gave you an experience you didn't have before. And so
mhm,
appreciation for that new insight, that new perspective, that new experience, and so appreciation and thankful and gratitude for it. The other thing that I found, particularly in moments of loss, so you've lost someone, I very much believe that there isn't anyone in my life that loves me, wants me to stop living because they're gone,
yes,
right? Our loved ones do not want us to stop living our lives because they are gone. And I think, and again, this is how I, part of my own process. It actually encourages me to live even a fuller life. I remember several years ago, I had lost my father, and I had heard, throughout my entire life, I heard many people talk about, you're just like your father, you stand like him, you walk like him, you look like him, all these sorts of things. And because I carry these traits for my father, by me being me, by me living my life, I'm keeping his memory alive. So
yes,
it's even more important that I live my life, right? Because yes, he's not here, but he's still within me because of my existence. And so I think and those are just what I use for myself. I'm not saying that's what everyone's got to do, and this is the way to get out of it, because we all have our own process. We all go our
mhm.
own path to get to where we need to get to. I've just found that's been the most helpful for me when I kind of keep things in perspective and remember these things.
Yeah, those things are important because the fact is that people came into your life for a specific reason. And
Yes.
like you said, you learn from them and they taught you something. And even if you think it was a horrible relationship, they did teach you something though. They
Mhm.
taught you how to be strong. They taught you how to be careful in who you get involved with. They did teach you how to value your own self-worth. And they did teach you some things. So it's not bad. There's not bad in everything. There are always some good in things that come into your life.
Yeah, there
And
is.
like you mentioned, very often, like when someone passes away, like after a while, the most things you'll get over it. Don't worry, it's okay, just give it some time. That's what most people will tell you, like when you suffer a deep loss or something, and you kind of like want to have a memory of somebody. And what I have found is sometimes people say, well, yeah, how you doing and stuff like that. And I say, okay, good and things. And like a friend mentioned, she said, and then I would like reference sometimes, like if things come up, something like I used to do with someone I lost, you know, and they'd be like, I find you talk about, mention these things a lot. But I said, because I'm honoring their memories, because
Yes. Yeah.
I, I'm not going to, I said, listen to me. Maybe it makes you uncomfortable sometimes or whatever, but these were part of my life and they had an impact on me. And these were things I like doing. And it brings me joy sometimes just to remember what happened before. So in doing that, I want to honor the memory.
Yes,
You
yes,
know,
yes.
even if it's like it was something that drive you mad about the person.
But I get your point, and I think what really it's really about appreciating everything.
Mhm.
Not everything, not every interaction, not every experience has been bad and terrible. There's something you take from it, that's teached you, a new experience, whatever. There's something to be gained from that, and I think it's important to sort of bear that in mind. Is there a lesson that you learned, like maybe that grief taught you about love?
About love or
Yeah,
life. The one thing I do know is that when I ask people, I did it out of like curiosity. So I asked them, what is the most courageous thing you can do? And of course, you get the thing, climb a mountain, go bungee jumping, jump out of a plane at 100 feet. I said, no. And everybody looked at me kind of strange, like, what? And I said, the most courageous thing you can do is love somebody. I said, because from the time you love somebody, you're giving them a part of yourself and you're taking a part of them into you. And you're accepting the fact that you don't know how it's going to turn out.
right.
And also, you are accepting the fact that they're human and they're mortal because nobody knows what's going to happen at any given time or any day or whatever. And when you give your love to someone, you expect them, to be around for you and to be there for you and stuff like that, and to go through life at your side. You don't expect to suffer a deep loss from them. So
Right.
the bravest thing anybody can do is love someone because you are taking someone into you and you're giving them something based on risk, great risk, and uncertainty.
Mm,
That is the gravest thing. That's what I found. And love is the most courageous thing you can do.
yeah. Yeah, it is. And again, you don't know. And I think that's kind of where the audacity comes in because you've got to step into it, right? You've got to be audacious
Yeah.
enough, brave enough, have the courage to move forward despite not knowing where that path is leading you, right?
I mean, yeah, because when you think about it, loving someone is audacious because
Hmm.
you have to say it, you have to feel it, you have to give it, you have to share it, and you have to learn to not expect also the other person to be perfect because we're all imperfectly human.
Yes. Yep.
So that's where your audacity comes in. And I think that is the most audacious act that any of us can do is to love someone because it's a bold move
It is.
to
You're
love
absolutely right.
someone. Yeah, we can go out and we can like start a podcast or we can, try all these different careers or, you know, do these things. But what really comes from inside of you and what you give, I mean, that takes a lot of courage
Yeah.
to do.
Yep. You're right. You're right. You're right. So I'm curious. How do you continue to honor your own journey while kind of still moving forward?
I do write and well, I try to do the same things that, we used to do and carry the same memories forward and stuff or whatever. And at the same time, it's kind of like you're finding yourself while using something. I don't mean it's not meant to sound bad, but using what you had together as a stepping stone to build a better you, a better version of yourself.
Mm,
Because you see the things that you learned, you also see the things that gave you a strong foundation
mm,
from loss and from grief. You also realize that you have a capacity in you that you never would have tapped into
right.
or you would not have been aware of. Because
Mhm.
every time you go through a life struggle, and listen, life is audacious. It will put you in circumstances you never expect, and it will put people in your life who you wish you had never met, or things like that. And it's not meant to pull you down or for comparison. What it's meant to do is to show you who you really are and to make you look at yourself and get away from the superficial things that you chase after or the mindset that you have inside of your head that things are always going to be like this or dreams don't always come true or sometimes the mindset that maybe I'm too good or whatever, because sometimes we do need to be pulled down sometimes.
Yep. 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 Um, Yeah, no, I think when you sort of talk about when you think about life in general and all that it offers, and I do appreciate the fact that you gave a plug for the podcast by saying life is audacious, because it absolutely is without question.
Yes.
We're always taking risks, always taking chances, and that's kind of what it is. And um, when you sort of think about your story, what's next in sort of your chapter?
Um, well, I'm writing, and I did do 2 books and things that are out on Amazon. But I found that since I started writing, because I've all written in my head, and I didn't have time before to really focus on that. And now that sometimes when I sit and things come, so I write, I interact more with people, I talk, and like a lot of people reach out to me, and like I do some kind of counseling with people also.
Hmm.
And also I'm involved with like helping, like, going out with friends and stuff like that and trying new things. I've never planted a plant in my life, and I'm actually doing that if my dog will just let them remain in the ground.
That's lovely. Trying new things, new experiences, right?
Yeah.
I'm curious, Cyndee, if you were to sort of think of one word that describes, your journey, what would that word be?
Impossible.
Mm,
No, that's the first thing that comes to my mind, and I don't know why, but the whole thing is that my life has been a series of impossibilities, and that a lot of things that were seen as impossible happened, in that
mm,
I went through some serious things and I got through. And I was in a wheelchair for 11 years, and I'm walking, and I told everybody I live by the grace of God, because that's how it is actually. And I'm not supposed to be technically, medically, I'm not supposed to be here, but
right.
I am. So I think of myself as impossible, because I wanted to write, but I never thought I'd get the opportunity to start writing and to,
Hmm.
put all in my head and try different things and stuff like that. And so it's more like impossible. I'm doing it's more like the impossible things.
Well, definitely congratulations is in order for the strides that you made on your own journey. I think and I think the part of your story that I probably appreciate the most is what you do next, and you're sharing, you're helping others through your experiences, because that will give others maybe hope along their path. Because it's really easy when you're going through something to think nobody on the planet has any idea what you're experiencing. You're on the island by yourself and nobody gets it. And then suddenly you hear
Yeah.
someone say, yeah, this is the kind of thing I did. And yeah, last week I got through this, and here's what I did, and here's how I did it, and here's who helped me, and here's what I learned from it, and here's where it took me. Like that is like you think of being in a desert and you're thirsty, and someone gives you water suddenly, right? It's that kind of
Yes.
refreshment that people will benefit from. And so I'm glad that you're doing that. You mentioned you have a couple books. Tell us about the books and where people can find them.
Okay, I have 2 books. One is called is a poetry book, Pieces of Me Touch My Soul by Cyndee, and the other one is Grief is the Price You Pay for Love but I wrote that one under Thealian, and both are available on Amazon.com.
Okay. And if listeners wanted to connect with you directly or just learn more about your work, where could we send them?
It's Cyndee Dhalai at iCloud.com. It's the same thing. I'll send you the link for it so you can always put it up and stuff like that. So
Yeah,
people
we'll put it in
can,
the show notes for sure. We'll definitely do
yeah.
that. We'll definitely do that. Well, Cyndee, this has been a delightful conversation, and I so appreciate you. Thank you for sharing your story so candidly and openly. And again, there's no question that it will be an inspiration for those who are listening, who may be going through their own pathway, and all of a sudden hearing something that sounds familiar. The charge that it can give. There's no words that can really to fully describe what it can do for other people. So thank you for doing that. Congratulations on your journey. And again, I appreciate you for being a guest here on the Audacious Living Podcast.
Thank you very much, Audley. I enjoyed being here with you also.
Yeah, me too. Thank you. All the best.
Okay, you also. Bye.
All right, welcome back. If you're someone who's trying to move forward in life with more courage and clarity, today's conversation is a powerful reminder that pain may shape you, but it does not have to define you. Cyndee shared so many thoughtful insights, but the one that really stayed with me was her belief that we don't necessarily heal by erasing what happened. We grow by learning how to carry it, how to make space for it, and how to keep building a life around it. What also stood out to me was when she said that the most courageous thing a person can do is to love somebody. That's such a bold and an honest perspective, because love always comes with risk and vulnerability and uncertainty, but maybe that's exactly why it matters so much. Sometimes the boldest thing you can do is leave behind what's successful to build what feels true. It's time for an audacious insight, a quick look at something happening in the real world that reflects the power of bold thinking and intentional action. In the mid-90s, Dr. Dre made a move that looked risky from the outside. He walked away from Death Row Records, leaving behind money on the table, momentum, and one of the biggest names in hip-hop at the time. But what looked like a loss was actually alignment. He bet on his own vision, built Aftermath Entertainment from the ground up, and later helped launch a career of Eminem, who changed the music industry in the process. That's the reminder. Audacity isn't always about holding on to something. Sometimes it's about having the courage to walk away, trust your instincts, and build the thing you can already hear in your head before the rest of the world hears it too. Please make sure to connect with Cyndee. She's doing some meaningful work through her writing, including her books, Pieces of Me, Touch My Soul, and The Grief is the Price You Pay for Love. We'll make sure that her information will be in the show notes so you can learn more about her, connect with her directly, and if this conversation resonated with you, share with someone who needs to hear. Be sure to follow the podcast, leave a review, and keep coming back for more conversations designed to help you grow, lead, and live life with courage. Thank you for being here, and until next time, continue to live life audaciously.
Driven by purpose, fueled by passion, my words got power, my thoughts have action, motivation, stay gracious, that's greatness, be all